Sorry for the wait, Mr. Flores. I am ready to take you now.
Grim Fandango centers around you as Manny as the Grim Reaper adrift in the afterlife. Due to a sin unknown to even Manny, Manny is forced to work off his debts by selling packages to souls on their way to the next circle of the underworld. The better deeds the souls did in their previous life, the better packages are available to them.
Did you kill much when you were alive?
Very little.
Never killed anybody?
I have to confess, I never killed anybody.
Not even a teensy bit of killing?
A bad soul has to walk their way to the ninth circle of the underworld. Others take the number 9. An express train, the number 9, gets them there in 4 minutes rather than 4 years on foot. However, the Department of Death, who is responsible for handling these cases, exploits souls out of their tickets. This leaves a villainous mobster skeleton crew to reap the tickets rather than those who worked for them. Each chapter takes place on the Day of the Dead and spans 4 years. Why 4 years? Well, I think it could have something to do with the importance of the number 4 in Aztec culture. It was commonly seen as important because of the 4 main directions: north, south, east, west, and the 5th is for the gods up above. The first chapter, the puzzles are built around navigating a rigged system that only benefits a single soul salesman. Manny Calavera is in competition with heavy hitter Domino.
Is it hard to kiss up to the boss so much when you got no lips?
Hey, I got all the lip I need. I get it from you.
But the leads Manny has are weak, so we spend the next couple of hours, rigging things in our favor. Doing so, we come up with a new lead, by that of a saintly client by the name of Meche. But upon her arriving at our desk, Manny can't find a ticket for her in the system. Manny ends up getting fired when Meche, a shoo-in for a number 9 express train, is forced to take a walk. But something stinks to high heaven in the Department of Death, and it's not too long before we find ourselves inducted into a revolutionary group who has knowledge of the DoD's exploitation. Our journey leads us past forests, into the swinging town of Rubalcaba, to the high seas, to the bottom of the ocean, and the end of the world and back again. Grim Fandango's development was led by project leader Tim Schafer, co-designer of The Day of the Tentacle and creator of Full Throttle, both equally celebrated games in their genre. Tim Schafer is kind of an industry legend, but 1998 was a weird time for the industry, and Schafer didn't like how 3D games look, which makes sense after working on highly stylized games that pride themselves on their visuals to tell complex emotional stories. Something like this might have felt a bit raw. If the genre of adventure games would ever reach the third dimension, it was important to Schafer to have expressive animation. To Schafer, the polygonal graphics of the time looked like cardboard shapes with texture mapping that resembled pantyhose wrapped around them. The solution came to him after remembering a lecture he sat in on during his time at UC Berkeley, where he saw pictures of papier-mâché skeletons from the Mexican holiday, Day of the Dead. Building a game around papier-mâché skeletons would be perfect for the limitations of the medium at the time. Grim Fandango is taken from a bunch of folk traditions over a bunch of time. There are many different beliefs that make up the pre-Columbian religions and traditions that make up the Day of the Dead. None of this is monolithic, but speaking generally, the pre-Columbian Mesoamericans believed in reincarnation. That's what concerns us the most for this analysis. Now, Catholic ideas made its way into various aspects of post-Columbian thought. This is all wide-ranging, but hell and heaven can also be seen in representations of the afterlife. Day of the Dead is filled with Catholic imagery. Because of this, Grim Fandango adopted some of these post-Columbian ideas of faith. There is a hell in Grim Fandango. We know for sure this is where this guy is going because both the concept art tells us and we can see it in the game's files. This video file you are watching right now is labeled helltrain.mp4.
No stairway. Denied.
So, what about heaven? The game hints symbolically to its possibility. The entrance to the Ninth Circle is on top of a large mountain range. Symbolically, it's a stairway to heaven. Mountains being elevated into the clouds. Get it? We'll reaffirm this theory later. Just give me a moment. The residents of the land of the dead only know that life is pain and death is a continuation of this pain.
There's nothing funny about being dead, comrade.
Life is pain, death is worse. My funny bone must have fell off in the hearse.
In death, there is continued suffering because of a continued yearning for material things. A continued theme in the game is characters stopping to play the casinos or getting lured in by some sort of distraction. There is death in the land of the dead, like there is death in the land of the living. In Rubikava, we see skeletons in the morgue, their bodies sprouted with flowers. In the commentary track, Schaefer points to the flowers sprouting from the dead to be symbolic of life from death, a sort of rebirth, reincarnation. Most religions believe that one shouldn't want to be reborn. To be continuously reborn is to continue one's suffering. The goal is to be liberated from such things. In the Beatnik Club, there's a wayward poet by the name of Olivia who keeps reciting poems promising each to be her last. She recites,
Ashes to ashes, 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 to me, to ashes, to ashes, to ashes, to ashes.
In this poem, we see that Olivia knows that she has miles to go before she can achieve some sort of liberation. The poem ends with an ellipsis signifying continual rebirth, signifying continual ashes to continual ashes, a motif that follows throughout the game. In fact, the game starts with an image of an ashtray. We see these in every cycle of the calendar in Manny's 4-year journey.
Ow! Oh, my stockings! They're ruined! And this was my best pair!
Sometimes these ashtrays are in puzzles, other times they are built in the architecture of the level. The journey ends similar to the game's beginning, but the ashtray has now been switched to a pool of water. This seems to signify a extinguishing of fire, perhaps confirming to us that yes, indeed, this is Manny's liberation from this world.
You know, sweetheart, if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Nobody knows what's gonna happen at the end of the line, so you might as well enjoy the trip.
Would you say that existence constitutes purpose?
Oh, who cares? Philosophers are all failures like me who couldn't make it in a real profession.
Rubikava is a town of permanence, of continued debt.
Well, I guess when you've got nothing to go home to, you've got nothing to lose.
Hey, we should put that over the door.
I had no idea you liked gambling so much, Glottis.
Well, the doctors made me promise I wouldn't do it anymore. But they can't get in the high rollers lounge, now can they?
Believe it or not, a game about The Walking Dead has something to say about existentialism. The world in the eyes of grim Fandango is innately absurd. Nihilism is Rubikava's main import. After getting lost in the petrified forest, sometimes for years, lost souls grow tired of searching for a higher existence and seek the thrills of the casinos instead. Some see salvation to be just a lie. The Mortician is the most defeatist of these characters that Manny meets.
Manny, you can only search for something for so many years before you stop believing in it altogether. Why do you think we're all here in Rubikava?
'Cause you're waiting to earn off your time or you can't afford passage or...
Manny, we've given up. All of us. When you've been here long enough, you will too.
The Mortician sees new John Does being brought in every night, a byproduct of the criminal gaming underground. He too laments that one day he will die and experience death within death.
I find evidence, and I piece together stories, but none of my stories end well. They all end here, and the moral of every story is the same. We may have years, we may have hours, but sooner or later, we push up flowers.
The end of the line is a signifier of divinity in Grim Fandango, but for many, they get lost. For the inhabitants of Rubicava, whether it be the roulette wheel or the tracks, either way, they find themselves going round and round. Femme fatales chase fleeting excitement, whether it be the love-struck Lola.
I'm on a stakeout. I'm gonna prove to Maximino once and for all that Olivia's no good for him.
Or the hep chick Olivia.
Hey, if Maximino sees that, we're going to end up in matching terracotta pots.
Both have bad taste in men, or rather, as Olivia puts it.
No, I have a taste for really bad men. There's a difference.
Olivia doesn't find her relationship with Nick sexually fulfilling. She's with him because he's the lawyer of her mobster boyfriend Maximino. She's only with him for the thrill.
You think Nick would hurt her?
Only if he finds her, and take it from me, he's not good at finding things.
Wait, how is she? She's a skeleton. How does that work? If you take a special item to your friend Glottis, he will sing you a tune. Rusty Anchor is about a well-worn anchor being dropped down to destination after destination, time and time again.
Oh, my boat's got a rusty anchor, rusty as she can be. Every port I go, I drop her, but she always come back to me.
Now, this always coming back to me is a motif in the game. Rotation motifs are used because they start where they end, like a lighthouse cycling or a roulette wheel turning to hit the same number, or the Mayan calendar year after year. Just like our Twin Peaks review, this signifies birth and death cycles. Perhaps this could reference the fact that there are so many circles of the underworld that one must move through until one achieves liberation. But these circle motifs also signify lostness. Some characters just go in circles. Sometimes we just find characters repeating their past mistakes.
This gonna be an annual thing with you, Manny? Every Day of the Dead, you toss your bones into the drink and I fish 'em out?
Valesco, the dockmaster of Rubicava, rescues Manny from the water twice, echoing the song's lyrics to Rusty Anchor. The imagery of a rusty anchor brings to mind complacency. Some of the characters know that divinity may exist, but they choose to live a life of comfort instead of facing the trials to get there. It takes a lot to keep the faith. After all, that's what I think Manny's story is an allegory of: faith and self-overcoming. Aspects of faith can be seen in the octopus prison level. Those who got packages to sail their way to the Ninth Circle jump ship to go after a large pearl underwater. However, this pearl is just bait by a demonic octopus to take workers to prison. Earlier, we see a sequence with its mise-en-scene ripped straight from Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot.
How do you know where you're going?
See the moon over there? I just keep it on my right. That way I know I'm heading in a straight line.
Geppetto, who guides his own light in the deep sea down below, finds himself going in circles, trying to find land, because he mistook the pearl for the moon. The last time we see him, he is waiting in the ashtray pool, walking straight. He says that he's evening himself out for whatever comes next.
And thanks for setting me straight back there in the drink. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light...
The entrapment of skeletons is through a material illusion of a priceless pearl. The material desire is what enslaves them, both metaphorically and literally. And in their imprisonment, they are forced to mine luminescent coral to use for the manufacturing of light bulbs for Domino to sell. A continuation of this false enlightenment theme.
Your destiny cannot be purchased.
A pearl also shines bright over Lola's lighthouse, a symbol of her attraction to wealthy bad boy Maximino, an attraction that gets her killed. At the end of our 4-year journey, after liberating skeletons from prison, we venture to the entrance of the Ninth Circle, but the gates tell Manny to reclaim the lost soul's stolen tickets, all the way back in El Morro. But to do so, we have to go back to where we were at the beginning of the game. Not only that, Manny didn't notice Gladys' sickness during his trek up the mountain. So this also seems to be some narrative karmic retribution. Overlooking Gladys' welfare is hardly Manny's only sin on his trek to the underworld. In the forest area, to knock down a piece of machinery, you have to hurt one of your friends. In the next level, you entrap a snooty, claustrophobic French waiter in a closet so you can slip by into the basement. In order to distract a demon octopus, you trick someone into getting caught in a trap.
Where are you going? You can't leave me here all alone! Come back here!
You eventually change, but throughout the story, you're a character after your own gain.
Love? Love is for the living, Sal. I'm only after her for one reason. She's my ticket out of here.
Now, I'm not saying that Manny isn't likable. He's extremely likable. But Manny is an individualist. And through the course of his 4-year journey, Manny changes from being driven solely by ego to going out of his way for his friends.
I could actually do it. I could walk out of this world right now and not look back. But I can't. I can't do it. I'm not leaving without the people I promised to save.
Manny's story is about redemption, of keeping up faith in the face of distraction. A certain Robert Frost poem comes to mind. Manny has promises to keep and miles to go before he can sleep.
Robert Frost.
Trying to stump me, eh? Ta-da!
So, why is Manny here in the first place? Why is Manny not on the express train and instead doing labor in the afterlife? There is some unwritten rule about talking about your backstory, and Manny never breaks it. So we know that Manny is rather self-centered. Self-centered people normally lack the ability of reflecting on their misdeeds towards other people, and so therefore it makes sense he thinks he hasn't done anything wrong.
I still don't know what I've done.
If I was to guess, Manny lacked empathy towards others and only looked after himself, like he does now.
In this case, you have no sympathy for the fox, huh?
Not particularly. I understand the point of view of the hound, too.
Noir is usually defined by its tone and character. Noir centers around traditionally amoral, selfish, self-serving characters. Grim Fandango, as a genre piece, takes on the role of the gangster film, mixed with gothic romance, both noir staples. I've heard people call Grim Fandango a parody. I don't believe this at all. It lifts stuff pretty blatantly, but I don't believe it is. The joke isn't at the genre itself. A parody would normally seek to lambast something like that. Grim Fandango seeks to mainly pay it homage. There's countless noir films that seem to inspire Grim Fandango. The Big Sleep, Gilda, Chinatown, Double Indemnity, but also other Bogart movies. Casablanca, that's probably the biggest. Manny even dons Humphrey Bogart's signature tuxedo. The film The Petrified Forest is made reference to, as there is a literal forest called the Petrified Forest that you venture off to.
The first time any one of you makes a wrong move, I'm gonna kill the whole lot of you.
Terry, the striking worker bee, is named after Marlon Brando's character in On the Wirefront. On the Wirefront also has a lot of pigeons, much like Grim Fandango. The Metal Detector Girl is a homage to The Big Sleep. Peter Lorre is referenced. Lorre plays Joel Cairo in The Maltese Falcon and Hans Beckert in M. Another noir classic, arguably the first.
The last time I was incarcerated, I shared a cell with the most dishonest con man I ever met.
Forgive me for saying so.
I forgive you.
Thank you. Will you have a drink with me, please?
No.
Oh, I forgot you never drink with any... I'll have another, please. Yes, monsieur.
Number 2, 1,000 pesos.
Gilda inspired the casino.
I think you mean 2. Am I correct?
No, monsieur. 14 is the winner.
So yeah, there's a lot of noir here, but the question is, like, why? Well, I don't know. But if I was to guess, noir characters are traditionally amoral. Therefore, it's a great template to use for something like Grim Fandango, a game dealing with the soul. Manny has a similar arc to Rick Blaine trying to get his girl out of Nazi-occupied Casablanca. Manny wants to get his Meche out of the land of the dead, so it makes sense why Tim Schafer would have his lead a Humphrey Bogart-type character. Now, that basically puts the nail in the coffin for our Grim Fandango analysis. But don't get sad. If you want more Frame into Focus, you can help me out on Patreon or subscribe. In fact, you, yes you, the viewer, I wrote you a poem. Clear's throat. It just says Clear's throat. Bony Bony, Bony Maroni. Like, comment, subscribe, Patreon, and all that baloney. Order a pizza, maybe a pepperoni. Not much rhymes with bony. Okay, it's 3 in the morning.